I'd like to ask the mayors to join me on stage to share their stories, actually our stories, so that we can celebrate our shared successes, learn how to overcome our shared obstacles, and understand where we might go next together. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mayor Tom Ellis with the City of Happy Valley, Mayor Tammy Stempel with the City of Gladstone, and Mayor Mark Gamba with the City of Milwaukie. So I'm looking to Oregon City. Is Mayor Dan Holliday here? Okay, well we will get started. So
more time. We get more time.
You do. We have more time for questions. Exactly.
No.
There you go, Tammy. Okay. So a little bit of housekeeping, although some of you have been kind enough to already start providing me with some questions. You'll notice there are some index cards in the middle of your table. When an idea comes to mind, or if you have a question, please write it down, and one of our wonderful volunteers will walk around and pick those up. And mayors, we're getting ready to open up with your opening remarks. You will have 3 minutes each. And to help keep both of us, all of us on time, Laura has, what are you going to flash up when they're running out of time, Laura?
Well, you'll get a minute. You'll get the magic card.
Okay. So that completes our housekeeping session. So Mayor Gamba, could you open up, please?
Absolutely. Well, first I want to thank the Chamber for having us. This is, I think, an important opportunity for cities and the business community to connect, and we probably don't do it often enough. When I gave my State of the City a few weeks ago, it was 30 minutes long, so clearly you're not going to get all of that. But if you really want to hear it, it is on YouTube. In 2040, Milwaukie is a flourishing city that is entirely equitable, delightfully livable, and completely sustainable. That is the opening line of our vision statement that we established in 2017. From that vision, the Council is prioritizing the issues that move us closer to that ideal as fast as possible. Big issues like climate change and housing will take longer and are more critical, so they are two of our first 3 goals. We continue to work on previous goals from previous councils. For example, we've begun construction on our SAFE program, which is predominantly funded by a fee on our water bill, but larger projects require additional state or federal grant money and will be built as we secure those. This year, we did receive a $1.1 million grant from the state Safe Routes to School funds towards the construction of the Linwood portion of those projects. And we are well placed to continue winning grants from multiple sources as we build out our system, making it safe for families to walk or bike to schools, parks, shopping areas, and more. This not only makes the city much more livable and equitable, it reduces short car trips. Another item that was a former council goal and again addresses livability, equity, and sustainability is the Letting Library. We moved the library operations to its temporary home and broke ground on the new library. If all goes well, we will be moved back into our new, larger, net zero energy library by this time next year. The South Downtown Plaza design was completed in conjunction with the farmers market, and construction has recently begun in order to coincide with the construction of the Axle Tree project, both of which should be completed by this time next year. With that completion, we should be able to move the farmers market to its long-intended permanent home, customized with bollards to close the street and power and water access to meet its very specific needs. There is more development in process at some level than at any time in Milwaukee's history that I'm aware of. We have roughly 1,000 units of new housing and a number of commercial spaces being planned, pre-apt, permitted, or under construction as we speak. Keep in mind that this is all happening in a built-out city. The completion of the Axle Tree will bring our first 5-story mixed-use building online. The increased vibrancy of the downtown should encourage even more services to locate there. Simultaneously, Milwaukie High School and the Northwest Housing Alternatives campus are under construction. When completed, the high school will be 30% larger with state-of-the-art classrooms, in particular the media center, makerspace, and science labs. It will have ample natural daylighting throughout and be energy efficient to LEED Silver standards. It will be an extraordinary institution ready to prepare our children to be leaders for the coming century. And apparently I'm out of time, so you don't get to hear the rest. Sorry.
3 minutes, really? That's all we get?
That's it.
All righty. Let me put my glasses on. All right, hello everybody. Happy 2019. I hope your holidays were wonderful and that you're getting ready for a great year, because I'm here to tell you that Gladstone is completely ready for 2019. The staff and elected officials sat down last month and reviewed our strategic plan, looking at where we were, where we are, and where we are going to be. And it's crazy looking at it on paper. I thought we were moving fast, but I think we're more at warp speed. 2 years has gone by really fast. We looked at our strategic plan. There was 32 items that we were addressing, and I'm so happy to say that we finished just about everything. And it's the strategic plan from 2018 to 2022. So that was wonderful. The only holes were our communication strategy, which is kind of an ongoing work in progress. Researching Gladstone Fiber Network, which we pulled off the table because it's just not reasonable. We're revising our employee performance evaluation handbook, and then looking at annexation strategies. So what is the state of Gladstone? Crazy busy. Everybody is wearing at least 10 hats, put in lots of blood, sweat, and tears to put all of these great projects that we've got on our slate moving forward. As I've said many times, we're still absorbing how we could have gotten so far behind and how in the world we're going to move forward. A few of our major projects, our master plans are all in place. Our staff is looking at the big picture, trying to figure out efficiencies so that we can do as much as we can with the little bit of money that we have. And if anybody's curious exactly what our infrastructure looks like, our Public Works Director puts a very colorful insert to our city council packet every month, and we just kind of shake our head and have to laugh, because if not, we would be crying. It's pretty bad. We entered into an agreement with the county to end the library lawsuit, so now instead of suing them, we are partnering with them. Holding a library hostage is certainly no way to feed and support our community, and I think we all realize that, so I'm very excited. We have broken ground on our new civic center, ceremonially at least. Got to look at those conceptual plans and floor plans. They're amazing. We're so excited. We're hoping to be substantially complete May of 2020. Our Portland Avenue redevelopment plan is moving forward. We're looking for developers, so if there's anybody in the room, please see me afterwards. Hopefully we're going to get a trolley bridge soon, county people. We're looking for a new police chief and fire chief. That's fun. We have our food pantry up and running. If anybody would like to donate money or time, please talk to me there too. Gladstone is still that small town where the police officers, firefighters, all of us wave as you drive by. That's who we are, and we don't want to lose that. So everything that we're doing is thoughtful. We want to keep Gladstone Gladstone. Come over sometime. I'd love to show you guys around.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mayor Ellis?
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and I'd also like the chamber, thank the chamber for hosting this event. This is my first time before you as mayor. I have to say it's an honor to sit next to these veterans mayors. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge while I'm up there the one speaking, I don't do this alone. Just last night, the City Council appointed Mr. David Amami to fill the vacancy that was created with my election as mayor. Together with the rest of the City Council and our staff, led by City Manager Jason Tuck, we make a great team. We have a lot to accomplish in the coming year, and we will all need to work together to ensure Happy Valley remains a place where our citizens are proud to call home. I'd like to highlight 4 areas of focus this year. We have an obligation to plan wisely for our future growth while maintaining a high quality of life. Our largest undertaking this year is the Pleasant Valley North Carver Comprehensive Plan. We are engaging property owners, citizens, and the Planning Commission to help envision an area of over 2,500 acres to our east. The plan will detail new neighborhoods, land for jobs, and infrastructure that is needed to serve our area. Number two, I'm anxious to get to work on improving all forms of our transportation system. We're in the midst of establishing an urban renewal district to fund critical road projects such as 172nd Avenue, 162nd Avenue, Sunnyside East Extension, and more. We are also working on completing sidewalks, bike lanes around what we call our super block, which goes around our main park. This is something that's been envisioned for many years, and my goal is to be under construction this year. Number three, our residents need and deserve more parks and recreation facilities. Throughout my time as council president and now as mayor, I continue to reach out to Clackamas County in hopes of solving our disputes. One major point that doesn't seem to be widely known is a judge in a court of law has found Clackamas County to be in violation of our contract. Even though this is the case, the city council and I are eager, I repeat, eager to try to settle our differences. Number four, we all need to be dedicated to keeping our schools and neighborhoods safe. The city's ongoing public safety levy is set to expire next year. In November, the city will be reaffirming a continuation of this levy to continue our police services. As mayor, my goal is to do all of these things and more in a fiscally responsible way. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the questions. So again, looking around the room, if anybody has a question, just raise your hand, a volunteer will. Let's see, the chair has another question, if someone could pick those up and bring them forward. Meanwhile, I have quite a few to get us started. And Mayor Gamba, I'm hoping that through the questions you can finish telling us the story of Milwaukie.
We'll see.
Okay, all right.
Depends on the question.
There you go. Well, they're pretty broad. So here we go. First one is housing affordability and climate change are often treated as competing interests. Do you think this is true? Is there value working on both issues at the same time? So in all fairness, Mayor Gamba, I'm going to start with you on that.
Sort of superficially, they are competing. The things you would do when you're building affordable housing that make a building more sustainable, make it more energy efficient, are obviously going to drive up costs a little bit. What that has to be measured out by, though, is how the building will perform over time and how the residents will experience that building. So I'll give you an example out in at Orenco Station. There's a building that was built by Welsh Construction for REACH. It's low-income housing. It was 4% over standard construction costs. It achieved a passive house certification, which means it's exceedingly energy efficient. As a matter of fact, those residents there are spending $14 a month, $14 a month on all of their utilities. So that truly makes it affordable housing, right? If your rent is affordable, but then your utilities aren't, it's really not that affordable. So it's actually really good bang for the buck to try and cause the buildings we're building, which all affordable housing pretty much that's going to get built these days is going to be built by government money, one way or the other. And to cause those to be efficient is just better for the people that live there in the long run, and obviously better for the planet. So I don't really think, if you boil it down, it's not that much of a conflict.
Thank you. And Maris, would you like to weigh in?
I was just going to say that it is one big pot of money, but I don't think they're in direct competition because it's coming to a point where climate change is going to drive every decision that we make, not just affordable housing, and that's how we have to approach it.
They've pretty much said it all, so I agree.
Thank you. So I'm going to take one deeper dive because there's a second part to this question. How do you expect the Metro Housing Bond to affect your city? Who would like to start? Okay. Mayor Gamba?
So we've been prefetching that. I was involved in working on that bond, and we had some pretty good understanding that it was likely to pass. So we've been working with Clackamas County, who is our low-income housing provider. The smaller cities don't do their own low-income housing, but so we started that effort over 2 years ago. And we are well along in our process on our Hillside master planning. Hillside is the area right across from the hospital there in Milwaukie that you may have seen, kind of like Army barracks. There's an opportunity there to probably house 400 or 500 more people than currently live there, to upgrade the buildings, obviously, that they live in, to where they're living in much more efficient buildings, to where the campus has a lot of amenities. There's all kinds of really interesting ideas that have been brought up around what we could do in that campus to make it a powerful neighborhood, a powerful step forward for the city, from being a microgrid in conjunction with PGE to make it more resilient, to everything, having share cars so that people don't actually have to own a car, which is a pretty heavy expense. So there's a lot of things we're working on in that, and I think the bond is just really going to allow us to step fully into that. Otherwise, it was going to probably take several years to do that work, because it is very expensive to build these days. We all know that construction costs have risen 15% year over year for the last 3 years. So that's going to be a huge start. And I think it's actually going to benefit the region, because that construction money coming at a time when we're likely to be experiencing the next downturn should be able to keep the construction industry moving and level, instead of what happened last time when everybody left the state because there was no work. And now we're, experiencing 15% year over year. So.
Great. Thank you. Very concrete, great example. Maris, do you have any example or follow-up?
Go ahead.
I'm torn on the affordable housing bond simply because Gladstone is landlocked. Well, not landlocked. We have defined borders and we have no room to grow. So for us to get that funding to build new affordable housing is almost impossible. So we are looking for creative ways to get some of that money back into our community. We were recently designated as a severely rent-burdened community, and I see it every day when I go to our food pantry and hear those people's stories. It's heartbreaking. And what I'm seeing is every dollar that the region charges in taxes, these additional layers that are added to housing costs, are forcing our people to choose between medicine, food, or housing. And that's where we are. So I see where we need this, but I think we have to be more thoughtful and realize that some of the people this is meant to help, we're actually hurting.
Thank you, Tammy.
Well, Happy Valley doesn't have a shortage of land, as most people know. So we are in the process of exploring how this bond is going to affect us. We hope it can be helpful in affordable housing in some way. And since we do have the land, I know we're going to be expected to build our fair share. And so we are in the process of exploring how this is going to affect us.
Thank you. Okay, so this one I would like to ask each of the mayors to address, and Mayor Ellis, I'm going to start with you this time. Clackamas County Commission voted to enact the vehicle registration fee. Does your city support the vehicle registration fee, and will you reach out to your community publicly?
Actually, the council, when this first came up, decided we wanted to stay neutral on it, and that's how we've remained. I personally am not upset that I'm going to pay an extra $30 a year to register my car. For the revenue that we're going to receive, I'm okay with it. I don't think that's too much to ask. I know there's groups out there that are not in favor of it, but speaking for myself, I can't speak for the council because we're neutral, but I'm okay with spending an extra $30 a year for what we're going to receive.
Thank you.
Well, whether we like it or not, it's something that needs to happen. If we had 20, 30 years ago looked and accurately projected what we needed, we may not have had to put that into play, but we have to. We need our roads fixed. We need our transportation system working for us. I commute to Sherwood every day, and on a good day, it's an hour and a half. That's a good day. So we've got to do something with our transportation system, and right now, this is the best that we can do. So I don't like it, but we got to do it.
Thank you.
The Milwaukie Council is in wholehearted support. We recognize that Clackamas County, unlike Multnomah and Washington County, has no income stream for the transportation system. Washington County had some taxes in place when Measures 5 and 50 were passed, and those were grandfathered. So they are sitting pretty. And even though they are sitting pretty, they are also raising their VRF the same amount that Clackamas County is talking about raising it. Frankly, it's a drop in the bucket for what we need. The construction, just the things that we're behind on, I always forget the phrase, but the things we haven't been doing for years and allowing our infrastructure to begin to degrade, we have to catch up on that, right? And never mind the fact that, as Tammy pointed out, we have a growing population in this area. We're going to be seeing very necessary changes in our transportation system. I think we'll probably be seeing a bond come out from Metro in the next few years, and that's going to be critical for us to create a transportation system that actually is going to work for this century, for the number of people that are going to be living here, to allow businesses to continue to function, to allow freight to continue to move, to allow people to get to work. If we don't do pretty major things, we'll get into a snarl that will make Los Angeles look fun.
Well said, all of you. So we know that transportation ranks as a #1 priority for Clackamas County, and the Board of County Commissioners stepped forward with a bold solution. So thank you for your responses, because there's a number of questions that relate to transportation. There's safety, there's congestion, but there's also some things like parking. So this is the next question. How are the cities handling the growth demand for parking? And particularly, Mayor Gamba, one came in for you relating to Main Street. So if you could each address it, but if you could focus in on the Main Street question, that would be terrific.
Sure.
Tammy, can we start with you?
Well, we just got done finalizing our Main Street revitalization plan, and parking is one of those issues. And I have to tell you, I was shocked at how passionate people can be about long-term parking. Really didn't think it was that big of a problem, but with the redevelopment, I can see it coming. And I've done so much research trying to find really smart solutions, and I'm hoping that Mayor Gamba does it first so that we can see what he did. Because, yeah, we are looking for solutions. I don't know what's going to be the good fit for us.
Well, parking for us, as being a fairly new city, most of our infrastructure, we have parking. It's not something that's really on our radar, to be honest. We have plenty of it, so we don't talk about it very much because we're not revitalizing our cities like some people are. So it's not really a big conversation for us. All our shopping plazas, streets, and everything have appropriate amounts of parking, so it's good for us.
So parking is the one thing that everybody is an expert on. We recently did a pretty extensive study in the city of Milwaukie, predominantly around our downtown, and how much parking there actually is, because there's always there's never any parking, right? Turns out we are actually underparked. We are not in, there's a sweet spot that you want to be efficient with your parking, right? And we're below that sweet spot even now. However, we realize that our downtown is growing. We are going to be continuing to increase the population in the downtown, and there will be more new stores because of that. So this plan carries out over a period of years, And there are things like starting to charge for parking, right? And looking at transportation management plans to work with the employers in the area to use different forms of transportation for their employees. I think parking is something that we have to think really carefully about. It takes a lot of land. I forget the number, but it's something like a quarter of the land in the Portland metro region is dedicated to parking, to where we're putting our vehicles. And when you're adding that into the cost of new construction, for example, the apartment buildings that we're talking about, structured parking is $35,000 per unit, and that's at the cheap end. $35,000 to park one car in a building. So that obviously increases the cost of the building, which increases the cost of the rents. If you look at what the people that are looking at the current or the coming technologies are telling us, we are likely to see autonomous vehicles becoming the norm within our lifetimes, certainly. Some people say as soon as 10 years. So when you think about building buildings and you're going to cause X building to invest, $1.5 million to $2 million in parking, and that building is going to be there for the next 100 years, and in 10 or 20 years, there is not going to be such a thing as parking. How much sense does that make? So I think we're at a really interesting time where we have to be thinking about these things and trying to balance both our current needs and the needs of the future, and what makes sense for the entire picture, not just, I want to be able to park my car right in front of the place where I'm going right now.
But when I'm at Elk Rock Yoga Studio, that's exactly where I want to park. When it's 7 o'clock and it's really cold out on a winter evening. Thank you for that thoughtful response. So Mayor Ellis, this one is for you, and it actually ties to the conversation we were having this morning at the Urban Renewal Task Force meeting. Where do you envision that water and sewer services will come from to serve the additional 2,500 acres for these new projects that we're talking about?
Well, water, Sunrise Water, I think that's their territory, and so I'm going to imagine it will come from them. We don't have our own water department. Sunrise does a great job, and they take care of all that. Wes takes care of the sewer, so I'm sure they're going to supply our sewer for us. It's a big challenge. 2,500 acres is probably one of the biggest plots of land in the Portland area that's going to be considered for future development. So water, sewer, all utilities are a concern on how we're going to get them there. But I think working with our partners, we'll figure that out and we'll get it in there.
Thank you. Okay, so this is kind of a big question, and on the hearts and mind of folks in this room today is really the subject of affordable housing and human services and maintaining our quality of life for all of our residents. So I'm going to start with this one, and Mayor Stempel, maybe you can lead this time. What have you done or plan to do to fund the human services organizations in your community? You talked about the food pantry, which really came to mind, and maybe you could talk about some of the things, not just necessarily that the city's doing, but you're partnering with as well.
Well, obviously we're going to lean heavily on the county services because we're a small city with limited staff. We're trying to create some organic groups that can help us plug the holes in the needs, community needs. The food pantry is probably my biggest, I don't know, I'm just so happy with our food pantry. It closed down. It's not just a Gladstone food pantry, it's a regional food pantry. It's a shopping food pantry. We are adding 3 to 5 families every day that we're open. We doubled the number of people 2 weeks ago. So the need is huge. We're looking for funding. I think we have enough funding for 3 years from regional partners. But it's just one small piece. Every story that I hear has to do with affordable housing and how are we going to fix that. I spent part of my Christmas trying to find housing and services for a 92-year-old woman that ended up sleeping in her car because she'd been kicked out of her house because the owner decided he wanted to move back into town. She was living in storage during the day in her car at night, and she had no idea where to go. So we need those services. I'm meeting with some some churches and some other groups trying to come up with some homegrown solutions.
Great, thank you. Who would like to go next?
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, go ahead. We don't have a food pantry, but we do have a lot of organizations in Happy Valley, churches, business groups, and others that are very good at raising funds, doing what is necessary for this type of thing. So we rely heavily on them. Also, Clackamas County helps out in Meals on Wheels, things like that. So we're more focused on the outside interests of charitable organizations that take care of a lot of this and do a really good job.
Thank you. Mark?
Well, as Mayor Stempel pointed out, most of our human services are provided by Clackamas County. That's pretty common in areas of smaller cities. So our end on that is to, and as I said, our vision calls for us to be a very equitable city. And what we mean by that is equitable on all levels, racially, economically. So we endeavor to do as many things as possible to make living possible for people on the very lowest end of the spectrum financially. And we have low-income waivers on utilities. We've passed a construction excise tax to be able to use that money to spur more affordable housing to be built in the city. It is a significant problem, and I don't know it's a problem that cities by themselves can handle. If you look over the last 60 years, the average person has become poorer relative to the cost of living and particularly relative to the cost of housing. And not just a little bit. I mean, think about this. When most of us were kids, one parent could work and the other parent stayed home with the kids. Today, it's barely enough money if both parents are working. Unless they have really great jobs, it's barely enough money to survive. This is not where it's going to end. This is a trend. This will continue, and it will become more and more impossible for people to survive. Gladstone is one of the severely rent-burdened cities. We are 0.5% away from being one of the severely rent-burdened cities. And it's just going to get worse. We're going to see more homelessness. We're going to see more families doubling up. In Clackamas County, the #1 population group that is homeless is families. So it's a bigger problem. And I think the state has taken some proper steps. I think raising the minimum wage is a start. But I think we're really going to have to work on this, and I believe the federal government has a big part to play in this. I think the federal minimum wage needs to go up dramatically. But
No.
Can I just say one quick thing? Is that people's perception of what causes homelessness needs to be changed. Because so many think that it's caused by drug addiction or mental illness, and that's not the case. Get out there and meet and talk to these people. That is not what's causing this. It's having to make those choices. Do I buy my medicine? Do I pay for housing? Or do I buy food? I mean, it's so important that we change the perception of what that means.
Thank you, Mayor. So with this sobering conversation that, again, I'm getting a lot of questions in and related to this subject, and this is equally plays in that vein. What are your thoughts on the new rent control bill? Tom, can we start with you?
I personally don't think it's going to work. I've talked to a lot of people that are in the process of selling their rentals, because I don't think the problem is controlling how much you can increase your rent, but I think they've made it so if you have a bad renter, it's difficult to get them out. And I think landlords that own a lot of rentals are worried about that. I have talked to people that they said, I'm selling all my rentals, I'm not gonna have any more, it's too much trouble. So I think the intent of the bill was good. We want to keep people in their houses. We don't want to raise their rents so high that they can't live there anymore. So I think the intent was there, and I applaud that. But I think this could backfire if we're not very careful.
So, Meryl, I wanted to dig a little deeper there because there's several notes here to you kind of wanting to know. So what is the city of Happy Valley doing to address the affordable housing issue?
Well, right now, we're building a lot of multifamily houses. In the last few years, we've built more multifamily than we have single-family. Row houses, apartments, things like that. I don't think people realize that when it comes to Happy Valley, and you drive out there and you see all these single-family homes. But we are building a lot of multifamily housing, and we have lots more to come. We've got probably 1,000 units coming online that are multifamily within the next 5 to 10 years, and we're encouraging that, and I think that can help with the affordable housing situation. I think affordable housing is a difficult situation to manage. I do think that city, state, and county governments are going to have to get involved when permit fees are approaching $40,000 to $45,000 per unit. That includes SDCs, building permit fees. I think the cities, county, and state are going to have to look into that, and we're going to have to take a hit, and we're going to have to lower those to make this housing more affordable. If you could deduct $40,000 off of every unit, plus other savings that I think could be accomplished through good management, I think we can get the price on some of these units down so that it will help the affordable housing situation.
Okay, thank you. And continuing the rent control.
So my experience of sort of the development process is that developers will build a building and then charge rent that the market will bear, whatever the market will bear. I think that when, the arguments, and I often sit at tables in conversation around this, and the argument is made, well, if government would charge less, or if we would just open up the UGB, the affordability problem would be solved. But it wouldn't, because they will charge what the market will bear. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does obviously matter, but those are not the problems. Getting back to the rent control question, last year we were advocating for a simple lifting of the preemption. So up until now, the state preempted cities from having rent control or doing anything else, outlawing no-cause evictions. So we were just asking for that to be lifted, and interestingly, we had been in conversations with several landlords, with developers, with a number of people, and the sweet spot that we thought we were kind of finding was virtually exactly what the state just passed. 7 to 10% maximum rent increase in a year, outlawing no-cause evictions, kind of was the perfect spot. And then any new construction isn't affected by that for 15 years. So they pretty much hit that, because that 15-year allows the investment to be recouped. Is it perfect? No. The people on the tenant side will tell you it wasn't nearly strong enough. And I can tell you that, I think it was in my first 6 months as mayor, I got a phone call from a little old lady, school teacher. She was late 80s, I think, or mid 80s. She was being no-cause evicted. She and her husband worked all their lives. They thought they were going to end their days in this apartment that they were in, and they were being no-cause evicted so that the property owner could upgrade the units and bring in higher renting people. I spent a lot of time trying to find her a place, and she didn't have a cell phone, she didn't have email. To this day, I don't know if she's homeless, because the last time I called her apartment phone number, it was disconnected, and I hadn't found anything yet. And we were seeing that over and over and over. And any society that can't make sure that someone who taught our kids for their entire career.
Thank you, thank you.
My answer is simple, it's not enough. We have to start being creative, we have to come up with other solutions. 7% is enough to put somebody out of their house. I have people where $5 increase in their utility rates is enough to send them to the food pantry because they can't afford to eat. So we need to do more.
And one of the things that's interesting, is, since I'm familiar with all three of these wonderful cities, is also the difference between very mature cities that are dealing with a little bit separate issues than newer communities that are developing with growth. And I really want to say to Mayor Stempel and Mark Gamba, you are doing an amazing job, because historically Gladstone and Milwaukie were our blue-collar neighborhoods, where our teachers and our public safety professionals lived, and now with urbanization and more people moving to the Portland metro area, you have your hands full. So thank you for your compassionate hearts and really trying to do what's best for everyone involved. So I'm going to, because of the spirit of time, I'm going to actually get to one of the last questions I wanted to ask to make sure everyone had time to thoughtfully address this. As you can hear, mayors, there is a real desire for you to lead that balance between the human needs of our community and the economic development growth needs. Those are, infrastructure and human investments. So this next question, what is the greatest opportunity and the greatest challenge? You've addressed many of those, but I'd like you sort of to bring it home, facing your city, and what should we be doing to prepare? And I want to add one sort of additional thought. How can we prepare together? How can local governments best work together to help you with these opportunities and challenges? Give you a moment to think about it, and who would like to start? Okay, Mayor Howell.
As far as Happy Valley goes, our biggest challenge is growth. But then also our biggest advantage is growth. We have the land, we have the planning, we have everything that we need to use this land in the way it needs to be used. Affordable housing, infrastructure, everything else that land needs to make it a home to people, we have. So those are our two biggest challenges, is to figure out how to use that in the most productive and efficient way, because we have something that a lot of cities don't have, and again, that's land. So those are our two big things on both sides of the spectrum, challenge and we need to use that wisely. And that means all of our partners, Clackamas County, other cities. Just because we're not right next to other cities doesn't mean they can't have a hand in trying to figure this out and make this work.
And so I'm going to ask you to take it to that next step. How can local governments best work together to serve the public in your city?
Well, as I said, we can, even though we're not contiguous to each other, I think we can all get together, meet, figure out how to make this work the best way. And that's what we need to do with these resources that we have. We need to take advantage of these, because these only come around once. I said something the other day that it's not every day you get to plan a city from scratch, and that's really what Happy Valley is doing. Mm-hmm. We're taking raw land and turning it into a city, laying the foundation for many future generations that are coming up, and I feel a big responsibility to do it the right way.
Okay, thank you.
So Gladstone is a rural city, that's what we feel like, within a large metro area. And we're trying so desperately to get caught up on the infrastructure that was kicked down the road for many, many years. We're full service, but we never really prepared for the future. So since we're severely rent burdened, which I've said before, the county, regional, and utility rate increases are placing such a huge pressure on our community. Like I said before, people are having to choose between basic necessities to survive. And the big challenge is, how are we going to address that? In the housing bond, a lot of new buildings are going to come online, but that's 5 to 7 years down the road. We can't wait that long. We have to find creative solutions right now. Opportunities would be in developing and leveraging our regional partnerships. You guys can help us grow up the right way. We're not reinventing the wheel. You guys are all in the same boat to some extent, and I think collectively we can come up with some really amazing solutions. Historically, Gladstone has been that community where you came knocking and we locked the door and never answered the phone. Well, that's not the way we are now. We are calling you, and we are coming to your office because we want those strong relationships. When I became mayor 2 years, 3 months, 5 days ago.
Who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting how many minutes and seconds? Essentially, it was, here, Tammy, here's $200 million worth of projects that have to be done tomorrow. How are you going to do it? Mayor Gamba was one of those shoulders that I cried on, and Mayor Axelrod and others. We need those relationships. We need to throw ideas at each other. So I have to tell you that your relationship with us, we value it so much, and it is absolutely priceless. And I think that is what's going to carry us forward.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask, though, for the sake of the audience, because you used the term infrastructure, which is pretty broad, and you asked for support from this group. So if you could think about the top 3 areas you would like support from this group, where would it be?
We need money for sewer, we need money for water, and we need money for, what else do we need money for? Pretty much everything. So $200 million worth of money. So that's what we need from you guys.
And I also
In a
know
nutshell.
that you're doing some amazing master planning too for your parks and your river access too, and that we haven't
Yes.
talked a lot about that, about infrastructure, because you can see where people's hearts and minds are today. But okay, you've heard the mayor's call for
Please.
support, and if you can't
Money.
get a hold of her, you can get a hold of Jackie, right?
Yep.
All right.
Please.
Okay. Terrific, Mayor Gamba.
Well, I think the greatest challenges that face Milwaukie are really no different than the greatest challenges that face all of us everywhere. We've talked about housing, that's a huge one. That flows from the income conversation that I started there. Transportation across the board is going to be a huge challenge for this region for the next 20, 30 years. And the elephant in the room is climate change. We will continue to see the weather get more and more extreme, and it will cause damage. It will, Milwaukie replaced a bridge to the tune of $2 million because of climate change. And that was 3 years ago. Damage caused 3 years ago. It's only going to get worse. If we don't address that, all the things we care about now, all the things we're talking about now, all the things from economic development to housing to will pale in comparison. It'll be like nothing we've seen before. So it is something that Milwaukie has taken somewhat of a lead on, certainly in Clackamas County. To try and address as a city, as much as the city can, to try and provide leadership and example to how to begin to address that. I think our state is working to make a pretty big step right now, but again, the really, really big steps have to be taken at the federal level. I think there's opportunity in it. I think there's a lot of new technologies. There will be new businesses that come online that solve these problems and that create a new way that we function that isn't causing climate change, right? That different forms of transportation, different ways that we produce energy, different ways that we utilize that energy, how we store energy. There's thousands of different new industries that will spring up from this if we choose to address it proactively and say, look, there's opportunity here, rather than bemoaning it and being concerned that any change we make will destroy our economy. We're Americans. We have always risen to challenges. This is just the biggest one we've ever faced.
So, Mayor Gamba, I want to ask you the same question. You look around the people in this room, and going back to this question about how can, I'm going to expand it, not just how can local governments, but how can local governments and the business community at large, how can we work together to support you with those challenges? What could we do?
Well, as far as local governments, I mean, the Metro Mayors Consortium, it's 24 cities in the metro region. We are working together. We are both advocating at state and metro levels on a number of items, including the Cap and Invest bill. And we are looking at problems we have that are similar. Homelessness, for example, drug addiction, mental health issues, speed limits on our streets that make them unsafe. So these are all things that the Metro Mayors are addressing as a unit, and it's powerful. We're being noticed down in Salem, and they're paying attention. So from the standpoint of how governments can help each other, that's one of the ways. Partnerships with the county because of all the services they provide.
How about the business community?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that one.
I think I tried to say it a minute ago. I think looking at these challenges as opportunities and choosing to invest and choosing to create new businesses, new ways of doing things, I think that is the place that business carries most of the power in this country, truly, because it controls most of the wealth in this country, and wealth is power. And so the opportunity really does rest with the business community writ large to begin to solve these problems, and in the process, find profit in it. It's not a zero-sum gain. I think there is potential, great potential, frankly. It's always been the disruptive industries that have made fortunes. Who are the richest people we can think of right now, right? Bill Gates, Bezos. Why? Because they jumped into a disruptive industry at the beginning, and they became the leaders in that disruptive industry. That opportunity exists right now.
So the challenge is innovation, coming up with innovations. But I want to say on behalf of the chamber members and who are mostly many small businesses, I don't know that they feel they're holding all of the power. So we're getting ready to wrap up. Okay, but so did you want to add anything to the regional partnership? So with that was the final question. I believe we have time for a 2-minute wrap up. Is that correct? 12:45. So if you could keep it to under 2 minutes. Mayors, could you?
We got to do that too.
Could you wrap it? Well, just any final words of wisdom, but just what's on your heart right now? We've talked about some pretty deep social and economic development issues in under 2 minutes. How would you like to sum it up? What are your final thoughts?
Me first?
Yes, please,
Okay.
Tom.
Final thoughts. I have to say that the secret is out as far as Happy Valley goes. People want to live there. We have a great community. We're expanding. We're planning thoughtfully, and we're a popular place to live, and we want to keep it that way. So we're going to work diligently to keep our city safe, great schools, everything it takes to raise a family. And that's my goal, and I know that's our staff and city council's goal, and we're going to keep doing that. Infrastructure is a big deal that we're working on right now. People complain about traffic and sidewalks and those sort of things, and that's one of our top priorities right now, and we're going to keep working on this, and we're going to keep Happy Valley a great place to live.
Thank you very much. Mayor Stempel.
Gladstone is in a great place right now. We're at that pivot point where one step down the road and we are going to be an amazing community. Not that I don't think it's amazing already. I absolutely love Gladstone, but it's time that we moved forward a little bit. A lot of projects on the table. I would love to have you guys stop by, call anytime, and as I've said before, I would love to show you guys around.
Thank you.
We talked a lot about big picture things. I think Milwaukie is endeavoring to sort of reinvent itself or to blossom and become the city of the future, to become a city that functions really to the benefit of the people that live there, and to be, as our vision says, really equitable and really sustainable and really livable, from increasing our tree canopy to building mixed-use areas within neighborhoods so that there are services that folks can just walk to rather than having to get in their car and drive someplace to go get a cup of coffee or buy a book or something like that. I think we are working really hard. We're going through our comp plan right now, and I think it should be a really interesting result. There's a lot of angst about some of the bills that the state is doing, but the things we are doing in Milwaukie supersede even the density concepts that the state is proposing, because we recognize that we are in a city. Milwaukie was a rural place. It was farms, right? It's not anymore. We're smack in the middle of a big city. We are a city, and we're going to start behaving like a city, but behaving like the city that will be the perfect city in the future.
Thank you. Well, so on behalf of the chamber, I would like to thank each of you for presenting today, and I would like to offer a challenge of my own to you as the board chair. One of the things I hear from the business community on a regular basis is they wish that they had more time to talk to you one-on-one, not just through questions. We have a number of ways to engage between our wonderful Friday AM events to we have evening networking activities. So when you have a chance, come to one of those and just spend some time talking with us, because we would like to be a part of the solution. So with that, thank you. This event is closed. Let's give them a round of applause.